The other is moving towards the child being more compliant the first time they're kind of asked to do something. Moving away from that idea of, well, the 10th time when I yell and scream and turn red, he does what I say. That's too exhausting to any of the adults working with kids with ADHD. So you choose the things that are really important for you in terms of what you need to see and expect compliance for those. You want to name the specific behavior that you want. So I need to see you have your eyes on me right now, please, or whatever that is. And adults working with kids with ADHD really need to be kind of stingy with their words. Don't get into giant lectures and debates. I've seen many a time with aggressive kids, moms and dads and principals sit down with kids and have huge discussions about why hitting is bad and hitting hurts, and it leads to mom had to come get you from school and I have a job, and it's really, really long, and the child goes back the next day and somebody makes them mad and they smuck them right in the jaw. So you waste all that time with all those words, when in reality kids with ADHD kind of know how to tell you what they should do. They have a bigger problem with sort of doing it in the moment, and them knowing that there will be rewards and consequences around that will go a lot further than big giant discussions and debates. Sometimes kids with ADHD can benefit from a strategy that some people call active ignoring. I call a speak and spin strategy. And that's when the child is doing something that's just kind of attention-seeking, sort of irritating behavior. So that's like whining or the repeated questioning, like, when are we going to Grandma's? When are we going to Grandma's? Or whatever that is. At that point, you want to break eye contact from that child, label what they're doing so that they know why you're doing that. So, I've already answered that question, and you keep asking it, and then you're just going to turn away, kind of demonstrating visually to the child, this conversation's now done. This can go really well in the classroom as well, with the child. So this skill, sometimes books about ADHD will say, oh, this is a really easy skill. I always say, well, then they have not worked with kids with ADHD, because it's actually not that easy. It looks easy on paper. It's really difficult because it tests all our anger control. So when somebody's saying, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored, 20 minutes in seems like a really, really long time, and it's really hard to kind of keep your face neutral, stay looking pleasant, and sort of end that conversation. I've had many a teacher say to me, all of a sudden I looked at myself and I was like an 8-year-old, like saying these things, well, fine, I'm mad at you too. That is us responding to that attention-seeking, kind of irritating behavior. So I remember a mom saying to me, her little guy said, you're not my friend, and she said, you're not my friend either, and then I think he said, well, you're out of my family, he left it like that. So it can get out of hand, and so you don't need to have the last word. So you've got to target that arguing with the kids who are really, really kind of impulsively wanting to kind of argue back with everything. They're really talkative kids. Reminding yourself, right, I'm the adult, I am the adult here, and I'm trying to model for this child how appropriate you should be in this sort of situation. So when you argue back, really, you sort of stimulate the child. It's really like adding sort of gas to a flame, right? Now they kind of go, oh, my argument is so worthy that she's arguing back with me. So shut that down when you can. On the flip side, if you're doing this, you have to make sure that you're giving a whole lot of positives and attention to this attention-seeking child when they're doing well. Okay? Don't sort of shut down arguing and kind of ignore the child all the time. You want to be giving them tons of attention for the positive behavior. When you can, you also want to anticipate whatever problems can come up with this child. So like this guy shouldn't have obviously had access to scissors. You try to do what you can to be proactive before, instead of having to be reactive. So I have seen schools say, you know what, he really, really struggles with coming in from recess where he's busy, 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 to coming back to the classroom. So they say, okay, let's set something up where when he comes in from recess, he pops pops in to see the principal for a minute, to pick up a note for the teacher or something, and there's going to be a 2 to 3 minute little discussion that's going to sort of calm him down so that he doesn't kind of, when he's hanging up his coat, start elbowing other kids and get so busy. Planning for those transitions. They are more difficult for kids with ADHD. So we often expect from kids for them to very quickly move from busy, busy, busy to sit down very silently, or to move from I'm still really angry and nobody's kind of given me a chance to work that through, and now I'm expected to be happy and friendly and whatever. And then, of course, the idea of kids with ADHD, as with all kids, but especially kids with ADHD, keeping them busy when you can to help them burn off some of that need for stimulation and to burn off that energy level. With kids with ADHD, it's good to think of kind of giving them really positive alternative choices. In terms of home behavior programs, those of you who have been to work with a clinician, a psychologist or a social worker, or sometimes in the classroom with school psychologists, often that will be suggested, and these certainly have been found to be really effective if used correctly. So many rewards, changing them as often as you can, and I term, I made up the next name, so bear with me, but I kind of call it the Donald Trump rule in terms of working with parents with home behavior programs. Why I call it this is because I always say to parents, if I offer Donald Trump $10 to do something good, he would say, I don't care because I have whatever, he's got $1 billion. So your kids who have, like, they've got their Xbox and their PSP and their Game Boy and their PlayStation, whatever that is, if you sort of say to them, well, if you do a positive thing, you get to earn 10 more minutes on your PlayStation, and they kind of know, I'm allowed on it whenever I want, for as long as I want, that's not a reward to them. You haven't tricked them into thinking that's a reward. Remember to try to aim for first-time compliance, so giving yourself kind of 10 seconds in your brain after you're giving out a command or an idea of something you want to see from the child. Give yourself 10 seconds, and that's what you should be rewarding is first-time compliance. What are the mistakes that interfere with how kids do? There is talking too much. Again, back to that lecture idea. Long consequences, dwelling on the past, allowing the child the escape. Threats with no follow-through, lots of us are good at that. And then positive reinforcement of negative behavior. So the child begs long enough and we give in, or they get really stubborn and they refuse to do something, and finally we give up and we don't make them do whatever it was. So in terms of treatment, in terms of overview, I just want to say, in terms of when you're helping kids with those social difficulties, a couple of things that I want to point out. Working with them in the point of performance is most important. So teachers, you have a lot that you can do to help kids with social difficulties because you see it when it happens. Parents, when you see these things when they happen at home, so you have a friend come over, you need to pull the child aside and say, you're being bossy right now, or you're not listening to what he's saying. And remember to externalize whenever you can, lots of prompts and props and cues. Remember, as both parents and teachers, if you're the most interesting thing in the room, you'll have much better attention from that child than if the other kids are much more interesting than you. Making problem solving and thinking more physical whenever you can. And then trying to strive for consistency. So when I say it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to reward you for this, and this is going to lead to a consequence. And then give yourself a couple of weeks to try it and see how that takes. Is there hope for kids with ADHD? Absolutely. As far as I'm concerned, if you can get the child to the point that the behavioral stuff is under control, so they aren't kids that are defiant and oppositional, which you can get under control, that can change. If you can get the child so that school isn't a place that they hate to be, and they're paying attention as best they can, and at least getting some of that, homework and schoolwork done, then they will do just fine. And hopefully all of you have had the opportunity to know adults with ADHD that have done well well. I've certainly worked with psychologists with ADHD. I've known surgeons with ADHD, and they've done wonderful things because they can kind of think of 5 things at once and be multitasking and do lots of great things. So those of you out there who are here because you have kids with ADHD, there's lots and lots of hope, and especially once the behavioral stuff's under control, ADHD is something that certainly can be coped with and can be something that becomes less of a problem as time goes on.